And I think this book inevitably deals with two major questions. You have, for the American side, the decision to drop the bomb; on the Japanese side, the ultimate decision to finally surrender. And I was wondering, for those who haven't read your book, I mean, I have no answer. Does this book
Mhm.
try to take a position on the matter of either?
Yeah, no, I mean, quite frankly, it's hard not to look at the facts of what was playing out in 1945 and understand sort of how that the bombs, as awful as they were, did play an important role in ending the war. I mean, and I think that's the tragedy of this story is that in the 80 years, 81 years, really today, since Hiroshima was bombed, there's been such an effort to sort of overly simplify this
Yes.
into were the bombs needed, were they not needed, was it good, was it bad, yes, was it no. And I think one of the things I try to do with this book is sort of say, push that aside and say this is much more complex than what post-war generations have tried to wrestle with. And so the reality is that we were headed toward an invasion with Japan. I mean, Truman on June 18th, 1945, had greenlit the invasion of Kyushu. We were preparing for Kyushu, and then Honshu was going to follow in March of 1946. Japanese very much knew where we were coming. It was hard not to look at a map of the Pacific and understand that after Okinawa, which island you were going to next. They were in the process of rushing forces to those islands. Uh, Japanese Ultra, the sort of our decrypts of their communications have shown that they were reinforcing that island tremendously. Pretty much every month there seemed to be new divisions showing up there. So much so that we originally, at the time of the decision to invade Kyushu in the summer of 45, we were looking at about a 3-to-1 ratio of troops coming ashore, 3 Americans for every 1 Japanese. That number goes from 3-to-1 to more like 2-to-1, suddenly 1-to-1. And the reality was, we now know that we were looking at about 900,000 Japanese troops on Kyushu by the time of the invasion. And of course, that was going to be a catastrophe. So much so that on August 6th, the Joint Chiefs were going to get together and meet to discuss whether or not was still really a viable option for us to hit next. And of course, that meeting never took place because of the dropping of the atomic bomb. But the real concern was this is going to be a bloodbath. Pentagon estimates in the summer of 1945 were projecting anywhere from about 1.7 to 4 million American casualties, and potentially as many as 5 to 10 million Japanese. And of course, the Japanese were looking at the Americans. They knew where we were coming next, and of course, their big goal was how can we sort of extract as much blood from the Americans and sort of this attritional warfare so that we can get a better position at the surrender table. And that was really their hope, was to avoid unconditional surrender. The Japanese militarists did not want to be occupied. They wanted to maintain the monarchy. They did not want to have their officers and troops put on trial by allies in war tribunals. So that's what they were hoping to do. And so what you see is just like two runaway trains just sort of heading toward one another in this sort of collision path. And so the atomic bombs kind of come into there as sort of a political weapon in a lot of ways. And I think that's what people don't realize today, is that yes, they are weapons of tremendous destruction, but they at that time played a very political role. And by that I mean Japan had already largely been destroyed. I mean, the
Absolutely.
firebombing campaign had destroyed 64 urban areas. 170 square miles were burned out of Japan's cities. Tokyo alone, after 6 raids, 56 square miles were burned out. Let's put that in perspective. Manhattan Island is 21 square miles, literally almost 3 times the size of New York, had been destroyed, and yet they continue to fight. That's where the atomic bombs were necessary as a way to sort of change the political calculus in Tokyo, and that's the role they play. And if you look at the Japanese side of things, that's exactly what happens. And it takes two of them. After Hiroshima and then the bomb on Nagasaki, that is when Hirohito says, okay, I've got to intervene. I've got to sort of break this tie, this 3-to-3, tie on my war council, where 3 want to keep fighting and 3 want to surrender, because we can't keep this up, or we're going to be totally annihilated. And so that is the reality of what played out. And so when you look at it, were the bombs necessary? Did they play a role? Absolutely, they played a role. And I think what you've seen in the post-war area is that realization got sort of overly simplified by people trying to push one argument or the other without actually looking at what did these bombs play in the decision role? Did they play in the decision making process?
And I guess for the